Hi everyone, welcome. Today we'll be discussing about student finance. Thank you for joining us. Okay, the agenda for today is who is student finance. So we're going to describe the differences between student accounts and financial aid. We're going to discuss the different financial fund sources. We're going to give you a little preview or example of what cost of attendance is. Just a couple little important things to remember, some policies that you should be aware of, additional services that we offer, and our contact information. Who is student finance? So student finance does consist of two areas. It's financial aid and student accounts. Financial aid is primarily responsible for packaging, determining student eligibility for federal, state, and institutional aid. So basically, either myself or any other of our advisors throughout the U.S. have already contacted you. We're responsible collecting any documentation that is needed to be able to complete your financial aid. So say that the Department of Education is requiring supporting, maybe there's like a hold or anything in that sort. It's our responsibility to collect that documentation so we can process and determine your eligibility for financial aid. Student accounts is more if you have a question regarding your stipend or when your financial will post on your account, or if even with direct deposit, right? Or any charges, if you have any questions regarding charges, student accounts would be your best department to be able to contact. They will be able to, they'll be more than happy to assist you. Okay. Financial and fund sources. So the different financial aid fund sources that we offer at the Chicago School are scholarships. Scholarships we highly recommend to look into. It's free money, right? And so definitely you can find the different scholarships on our website at thechicagoschool.edu, or you can actually touch base with your admissions representative. They can let you know what scholarships you may be eligible for or which ones you can apply to. So I highly recommend to look into scholarships first. Second would be federal grants. So this is actually only for undergraduate students. So any student that's working on their master's or PhD or anything that's after your bachelor's degree, you wouldn't be eligible for any federal grants. But there is, for undergraduate students, there's the Pell Grant, and then there's the SEOG. There's also state grants, again, for only undergraduate students, and that's the Cal Grant. I offer that too. For student loans, that's going to be for the majority of our population, which are grad students. Most students may be eligible for the subsidized loan, which can be, that's again for the undergraduate students, but the unsubsidized loan is for the graduate students. Most of you might have already got your award letter that you were eligible for the $20,500. That's typically what most students are eligible for. Keep in mind that half of that would be for the first semester, and then the other half would be for the second semester. So in this case, for like fall and spring. If you started in the summer, it'll be summer, fall, right? So we award every 2 semesters unless you're in the PsyD clinical program. There's also graduate and Parent Plus loans. So for the undergraduate students, there's also, if you needed additional funding on top of maybe your grants and the unsubsidized loan, and you needed additional funding to be able to go to school. There is also a Parent Plus option, which is basically almost like a cosigner, right? So a cosigner can sign for your loan, right? And it is credit based. The Graduate Plus loan is actually the student itself, and that's for graduate students. So the graduate student, if they want additional funding on top of the unsubsidized loan that they accepted, or say that they've already met their cap in the unsubsidized and subsidized loans, then graduate students can apply for the PLUS loan. Again, it is credit-based, so keep that in mind. Next, we have the private and alternative loans. So those we go from, we accept ones from Sallie Mae, Discover, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, anything in that sort. Some students just prefer to or maybe find a better rate in the alternative and private loans compared to the unsubsidized, which is completely fine. You just want to stay connected with your advisor or office to let us know that you're not interested in federal aid and you will be going for an alternative route for your funding. Lastly, we do offer federal work study. So if you are interested in federal work study, you can just contact us and then we can send you the link on where you can apply. Very simple, almost like a interest card, right? So, so definitely you can determine eligibility once you submit the application. Okay, next, we are going to discuss the cost of attendance. I highly recommend to take notes. Cost of attendance, it's very different than what it sounds, but definitely I'll break it down for you so you can better understand what cost of attendance means. Okay. Cost of attendance for a student is an estimate of that student's educational expense for a period of time that may include tuition and fees, estimated textbook expenses, room and board, transportation, and other miscellaneous expenses. So it's basically a combination of direct cost and indirect cost. Direct cost would be tuition and fees and textbook expenses. Indirect costs, right, would be room and board, transportation, and anything miscellaneous that you would need to be able to go to school. So basically, just to give you a better visual of the numbers of what cost of attendance is, cost of attendance does not mean it's the price of the overall program. It basically means that for the full academic year, the student is allocated a certain amount on estimate of how much the program cost for that full academic year, depending on how many units you use, and also other expenses that you might need while you're going to school, right? So say that you do accept the 20,500, right? And that's enough for maybe 6 credit hours for each semester. Okay, so that will cover your tuition and fees. But say that you might want to be working part-time, or say that you're not going to be working at all. You can apply for the Graduate Plus loan and we would award you up to your cost of attendance. So for example, if you are working in the PhD or PsyD program, on estimate, keep in mind that tuition and fees may increase over each year depending on the school. So tuition fees may be about, on estimate, 32,584. Other expenses, right? So maybe travel, maybe you needed to get a new laptop, anything in that sort. Food, it could cost about 29,800 for the full year, right? So for example, it'll cost about 29,800 for even rent, right? So rent, travel, food, anything that's needed to be able to be a student from August, say all the way up until May of next year, right? So this is just an example, but again, we award every 2 semesters. So your total cost of attendance is 62,384, and we can award you, if you get approved in the Graduate Plus loan, up to 62,384. Keep in mind, because this is federal aid, there will be one disbursement every semester. So you won't get this full amount. First, you would have to get approved, and then second would be about 2 weeks after, about 10 days after the semester starts. And then of course your tuition fees will get paid first, and then your stipend will be sent to you up to 14 business days after, okay? So this is just a rough estimate. Cost of attendance is it's important to know, right? You're more than welcome to give us a call or even email us, and then we can give you a breakdown. We highly recommend to be registered for your courses already to give you a better estimate of what your cost of attendance will be. Okay. Other things to remember. So first off would be to complete your FAFSA. So the FAFSA, the new FAFSA application will always be available after October 1st. So keep that in mind. I always say every time October 1st comes around, just go ahead and complete your new FAFSA, right? Even if we're not going to be using it just yet, but it's better to be ahead if you may be using financial aid. Keep in mind that the FAFSA application is free. So, and even if later on you don't decide to complete it or to use financial aid, you can just let us know and we'll just go ahead and update your account. I didn't put address, the email address, or sorry, the website on how you can complete your FAFSA application. And then don't forget to put the school code. So the school code is listed on the screen there. You can more than welcome to take a picture of it if you forget. And it's very important to also put the correct school code because sometimes if there's a digit missing, that can throw off and throw off the application and we won't be able to receive it, or we won't receive it. So next is understanding your loan history and lifetime borrowing limits. So definitely something that you want to be mindful. Sometimes, we send the award letters and students don't know that you can actually reduce it, right? So our job as a department in the financial aid is to award you your maximum eligibility. So keep in mind that if you only want to take out for tuition and fees, you can give us a call. You can give us a call and we can give you a breakdown of how much that will cost, and you don't have to take out that full 20,500. So on this website at nslds.ed.gov, this keeps track of all the loans that you have accepted, even before us, even before say that you're undergrad, right? You want to see how many loans you've taken out. Keep in mind there is a limit for the subsidized and unsubsidized loan. So it's about 1,300, sorry, 138,500. So keep that in mind. And so you want to make sure that you have enough funds until the end of the program, right? And so that's very important. Funding sources cover every 2 semesters. So as we mentioned earlier, we're always going to award every 2 semesters. So just because you accepted 20,500 for your first academic year doesn't mean that's the only thing they're eligible for the full program, right? So every 2 semesters, we're going to be generating a new award letter. And then except for the PsyD clinical psychology. So that program is actually awarded differently, right? So it's every 2 semesters the first academic year, and the second academic year, we actually award for 3 semesters. So if you have any questions, you're more than happy to give us a call or email us, and I'll give that contact information at the end. Next, approve, adjust, or decline individual awards. Very similar to what I mentioned earlier, you don't have to approve the full amount. You can approve just tuition and fees, or if you want a little bit for books, right, or for a little bit of living expenses, you can definitely do that as well. And we do need that response from you, right? We won't be able to accept your award like a verbal approval or denial. It would have to be in writing, or you would log into your portal if you have access to that already. Next, timely submit all your documentation. So we will be calling you regularly to be able to collect any documentation that we're missing from you. There could be an entrance counseling, a master promissory note, anything in that sort. If we are contacting you, there is something that we need from you. So definitely we would advise to submit anything that we email you or requesting from you to be able to complete your financial aid and to avoid any financial aid late fees, right? So student accounts can sometimes charge late fees if you don't have any funding scheduled to be able to pay for your charges. And lastly, monitor your email regularly, right? So we're definitely always emailing students, calling students for any updates. If we need more support and documentation, as we mentioned earlier, emails are primary contact, but we definitely are giving phone calls as well. So monitor your emails and respond to us. Thank you. All right, next is FA disbursements and student refunds. So this just gives you a breakdown of the disbursements, right? So some students, as we mentioned, do use their financial aid for living expenses. So stipends are important, right? So financial aid disbursements are typically requested 10 days after the semester begins. So that means that your tuition and fees will be paid 10 days after the semester begins. And your stipend, which is to the next bullet point there, would be up to 14 business days after that, right? And so we highly recommend to set up direct deposit, and that typically you get your stipend a lot quicker compared to getting it as a check, but definitely will be 14 business days after your tuition fees get paid. Okay. Refunds are issued either by mail or check. And then refund stipend amounts can vary each semester, right? So if you take less credit hours, then you might have a larger stipend if you accept the full amount. If you take more credit hours, right, your charges will increase. So that means that you might have a smaller stipend. So keep that in mind. You're more than welcome to give us a call or email us to kind of give us to give you an idea of what your stipend may look like. But we highly recommend to make sure that you register for classes first so we can know what your estimated charges will be. And lastly, budget refunds accordingly for the entire academic year. So again, you can connect with us so we can advise you on how much you will be getting as a stipend, especially if you will be using that for living expenses. So if we might offer the Graduate Plus loan, if you need additional fundings, maybe last academic year you didn't, right? So we can give you a better idea of what your stipend may be or what your charges will be. Next would be some important policies. So to be able to be eligible for financial aid, there are some policies that take into play. So for example, the first would be attendance. So students must be reported active in courses to be eligible for financial aid disbursements. So say that you take a leave of absence or say that you withdraw, but you already accepted your award letter like a month ago, you wouldn't be eligible, right? So you have to be an active student, be registered for courses to be eligible for financial aid and for that disbursement. Next would be enrollment status. Students must maintain at least half-time enrollment status to remain eligible for financial aid. So if say that the student is registered for courses, but it's actually only 2 credit hours. For a graduate student, you must be registered for at least 3 credit hours. That would be considered half-time. For an undergraduate student, you must be registered for at least 6 credit hours, which will be half-time. That's the minimum requirement. And then the courses also have to be part of your program. So keep that in mind. So at least half-time to be eligible for financial aid. Next would be satisfactory academic progress. Federal financial aid is based on student maintaining minimum academic standards outlined in the SAP policy. So what this means is that you have to be in good standing, right? So in order to know if you're fulfilling that SAP progress or policy, you'd want to reach to the registrar's office. It would have to do with your GPA, right? So you have to be in good standing, can't be failing your classes the whole semester, right? And still be eligible for financial aid. So you want to touch base with your registrar to see what the requirements are for SAP. Okay. Next, in-school deferment. So in-school deferment basically means is that if you are registered or if you are currently enrolled in school, your loans get automatically deferred. However, you want to touch base with the registrar's office to make sure that they are submitting that database that you are enrolled to make sure that your loan provider knows that you are um, that you're an active student, right? And then again, you have to be at least half time to be able to get those loans deferred. Next would be tuition refunds for dropped and withdrawn courses. Tuition refunds are determined by the week in which a student drops or withdraws from the courses. So you can find this information at the Chicago School Catalog. There are specific policies and percentages on if you drop courses within the week of the semester, right? So we highly recommend if you want to get your full refund, just drop it before the semester starts, right? We highly recommend that so you can get your full refund, and then we can cancel any aid that's needed or adjust any aid, federal aid that you might have accepted. Return to Title IV, R2T4. A portion of federal student aid is returned unless a student is enrolled at least 60% of the total in a semester. So keep in mind that say that you're fully enrolled, you're going to the courses, and or going to class, and at maybe 60% of the semester something happens. We understand life happens and you have to withdraw from the course, right? Which makes you ineligible for financial aid, right? But by this time, if you have reached the 60%, then technically there is no adjustments that are needed. You can keep the financial aid, but you just have to owe it to your loan provider, right? So it doesn't have to be returned. However, if you withdraw before the 60% of the semester, then you will be contacted by the specialist and they would process an R2T4, which basically states that you were only eligible for a certain amount of funds in financial aid because you did not attend 60% of the semester. So highly recommend to touch base with us if you wanted to get an estimate, if you are at the 60%, to hypothetically to see if you reach that, or there might be a refund and you might end up with a balance. So keep that in mind as well before withdrawing. Additional services. We offer the book voucher and the I3 group. Okay, so book voucher is basically students are provided an opportunity to purchase textbooks in advance without an additional out-of-pocket expense with an approval of the book voucher. Book vouchers are repaid with the approved anticipation of financial aid that exceeds institutional charges. So basically what a book voucher is, it's not additional funds coming from financial aid. It's basically getting your stipend before the semester starts to purchase your books from our bookstore, right? So as we mentioned earlier, right, some students may get a stipend, right, like a refund, and you may use it for books or supplies or anything in that sort, but instead of getting it after the semester starts, you're going to get it ahead before the semester starts to be able to purchase your books. But keep in mind, it is only for our bookstore. So for ground students, it's about either $350 or $650. It's up to you. You can choose. And then for online, it's $200 or $350. Also, friendly reminder, if you do not use your book voucher, even after you requested it, it does expire 30 days after your assurance. So you want to keep that in mind, and it'll be credited back to your account. So you'll still get that stipend, right? But it won't be a book voucher. Okay, next, this is a great program. It's the I3 group. So we highly recommend to students to follow up and download and create an account. It's great to monitor your loans, your maybe get pros and cons about student loan refinance, different financial literacy, right? To know the different terms, right? Maybe there's some terms that you're not too familiar with, or even repayment information, right? So say you're like, you know what, I'm almost close to the end of my program. I want to know what different repayment options the Department of Education is offering. So, or even deferment, right? So just, it's a lot of really good information that we offer to students, and we definitely would want you to take advantage of that. So you can go to iontuition.com. Okay, and lastly, this is our contact information. So again, I'm one of the financial aid advisors, but we have advisors throughout the all US. We have our hotline. You want to make sure you click 2 or press 2. And then for student accounts, it would be 2 and then 1, I believe. And then our hours are from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. Central Time, right? Again, because we have advisors throughout the US. And thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.